Hello and welcome to week 2. Hopefully you already watched the video on functions. And now I'm going to do some examples from MyMathLab. So with this first one, they give you a graph. Now, they actually gave me a really small graph right here and I couldn't see it very well. So there was a little button for a magnifier, and then it expands it so you could see better right here. So this is basically just saying go to the function, and if you substitute x as a -2, then what's the y value? And they say the nearest integer, which just means whole number, so don't give a decimal. So let's see, this would be -1, and -2. So right here is -2. And then if you go up to the function, it's going to hit the function right here. And if you go across, this is going to be the y value. So this is 0, 1, and 2. Let me just make sure. 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes. So this is 2. So then the answer is 2. Next up, oh, by the way, that was question number 8. So they might change the graph a little bit, but it should be very similar when you do question number 8. And then for question number 10, find the domain. And I actually did domain in the main video, but then when I saw this homework question, I thought, well, I should do this one. Because with domain, there's 2 rules. You can't square root of a negative, and you can't have division by 0. So this problem does not have square root, so I don't have to worry about that rule. It does have division, and it's just the bottom that cannot equal 0. So that means that the bottom, if you set it equal to 0, that's what x cannot equal. So x plus 8 cannot equal 0. The top doesn't even matter. They could put a red balloon or a purple puppy right here, and it would mean the same thing to me. Doesn't even matter. All that matters is the bottom. Can't divide by 0. So if you then subtract 8 from both sides, you're going to get x cannot equal -8. But in here they say make sure you put your answer in interval notation. So that means that if you look at the number line, right here is -8. Everything to the left of it is fine. So that would go from -infinity to -8. Everything on the right side is fine. So that goes from -8 to +infinity. And then you just put a union and make sure you have the round parentheses, which is saying we cannot actually equal -8. So that is number 10. And then as I skip through, I found another one, and that is question number 18. And I actually, in the lecture part, did this before, except this has both an x and an h. And so I used, I believe, an x and a 2 instead, but I did something very similar, except I didn't use the h. So just let me show you with the h. So this means substitute x plus h everywhere where the function has an x. So then we'd have 4 times, then put x plus h squared minus 7 times x plus h and plus a 6. And then x plus h squared means I need to multiply out what's x plus h times another x plus h. And I'll come back to that in just a second. I just want to make sure I don't forget about this other stuff, so I'll go ahead and do that now. Distribute the -7, so that's -7x minus 7h, and copy down the plus 6. Now I'm going to multiply out this part. I'm going to leave the 4 for later, so the 4 can wait patiently while I do this work. So there would be x times x when you distribute, that's x squared. There would be x times h, so that would be plus xh. Now distribute the h, so that would be h times x, or x times h, same thing. And then there would be an h times h, so plus h squared. And then all of that's in the parentheses, and then it's going to get multiplied by 4. Looking over here, none of these terms can be combined, so for now, I just copy them down. Okay, now distribute. So 4 times this is 4x squared, then times this is plus 4xh, and then times this is plus 4xh plus h squared. Oops, 4 times h squared. So I distributed the 4, and then again, just copy this part down. And then we have to see if anything can cancel or be simplified. Well, my little red pen says these two both say xh, so they can be, hold on, I'm almost about to go off the video. Here we go. These two can be combined, so that's going to be 4 plus 4. It's going to be 8xh. And nothing else can be simplified, so it's going to be 4x squared plus 8xh's plus 4h squared minus 7x minus 7h and plus a 6. This is part A. So part A, type in your answer. Do not factor it, just type in the whole thing. Then part B. So part B says, take your answer from part A and now subtract f of x. So now subtract this. So I'm not going to rewrite the whole thing because this was already my answer for part A. So that's this part of it. And then subtract f of x. So in other words, subtract the f of x. 4x squared minus 7x plus 6. And then this can be simplified because if you look at this, this is going to be a negative 4x squared, and this 4x squared are going to cancel. Cancel, cancel. And this negative of negative 7x means that's a positive 7x, and this negative 7x is going to cancel, cancel. And this this negative 6 is going to cancel this positive 6. So cancel, cancel. So what's left? There is an 8xh that's left plus 4h squared. There's minus a 7h. And nothing can be combined, so that is part B. So after you answer this, then they'll have a part B and you fill in this answer. Of course, when they give you the problem, they're probably going to change the numbers a little bit, so it's not exactly like this, but it's very similar. And then for the last part of this one, they say, okay, now take the work that you've done on part B and now divide by h. So here's the answer I got for part B. They're saying now divide by h. Well, this has an h, and this has an h, and this has an h. So that means on the top I could factor out an h. This one will be gone, so it's just going to leave 8x. Take out 1h right here, so that's going to leave 4h. And if you factor out this h, all that's left is negative 7. And then, because there's an h on the top and h on the bottom, they cancel. So that means my final answer is 8x plus 4h minus 7. And then that would be the last thing that they asked for. And this is basically the derivative. So this is the work to find the derivative. Even though we haven't talked about derivative, it is one of the most important ideas in calculus, which we're working our way towards. Then when we find the derivative, that means that h becomes a 0. And so after this h becomes a 0, then we're left with what's called the derivative, which is 8x minus 7. But that part is not a part of the homework right now. That is coming up in the near future. Something to look forward to. And I believe I have two more. So this is number 19, a word problem. The perimeter of a rectangle. So here is a rectangle. And I don't know what the sides are, but they said express the area as a function of the length L. So they're saying put L as the length. And because it's a rectangle, these two sides have to be the same length. And we don't know what this side is and we don't know what this side is. So for the moment, I'm going to call it X and X. Now, they say that in your answer, there are not supposed to be any X's, there's only supposed to be L. But that's okay because we have this information that the perimeter, which means if you go all the way around this and add up all the sides, it has to equal 410. So if you add up the sides, there would be X plus X, so there's two X's. There would be L plus L, so plus, there are two L's. And then that has to equal 410. Okay, next, area. So to find area of a rectangle, area just means take one side times the other side. So the area equals L times X. And that is true, but right here, they're saying your answer should not have any X's in it, it should only have L. So this is fine, but this needs to be replaced. And that's why we have this equation, so that we could solve for X. I do notice that all these numbers are even, so it would actually make life a little simpler if I divide by 2 and divide by 2 and divide by 2. And then this will cancel and cancel, so it's going to say X plus L equals, and then 410 divided by 2 is 205. And then I just need to solve for X. So just subtract L from both sides, and X is equal to 205 minus L. Then go to this area formula. Area equals, the first L was fine, and then the X needs to get replaced with 205 minus L. And then they said that the answer should be area with L as the variable. So there we go. That one's done. And then another word problem. This one is number 27 in the week 2 homework. At low altitudes, oh, that's a weird repetition. At low altitudes, the altitude of a parachutist, okay, somebody wearing a parachute, the time and the air are linearly related, so this just means there's a line. A jump from 2,000 feet lasts 100 seconds. So if you have 2,000 feet divided by 100 seconds, these are going to cancel and cancel. So that means it's 20 feet every second. So 2,000 feet over 100 seconds. So the person is falling 20 feet every second. I haven't even read the question. I just wanted to figure that out. How fast are they falling? 20 feet per second. Find the linear model. So what they're saying is find the equation of a line. So what I could do is say, all right, so it's at 2,000 feet. So at the very beginning, they're 2,000 feet up in the air. So basically, here's the ground, and then here's the little parachute. I'm not very good at drawing. And the person is right there, and they're smiling and having fun in their parachute. Anyway, so they are 2,000 feet up in the air. And then this is actually going to help me because 1 second later, then they've gone down by 20 feet. So 2,000 minus 20. So then they would be at a height here. So they would really be right here, but let's say the wind pushed them over. Anyway, so then this would be 2,000 minus 20, and that is 1980. I was in 7th grade, 1980. Okay, anyway, so this is when time equals 0, because that's saying at the beginning of the jump. And then this was saying 1 second later, so that means t equals 1. So then I have 2 points, so one would be at time 0, they're 2,000 feet in the air. And then at time 1, they would be 1980 feet in the air. And then from that, you can find slope. So you subtract the two y values. So 1980 minus 2,000. And then subtract the two x values, and that would be 1 minus 0. So that means that the slope is equal to 1980 minus 2,000 is actually negative 20, and then divided by 1. So this 20 was correct, and it is the slope, but because they're going down, then it actually is supposed to be negative slope. And then find a linear model. So in other words, find the equation of the line. So then to find the equation of the line, I could go y minus the y value, and I'm going to use this point. You can use either one, but since this one has a 0 in it, I think that one's going to be easier. So y minus the y value equals slope times x minus the x value. And yes, having that 0 in there does make it easier. So then this side would just be negative 20x. And then I could add 2,000 to this side and add 2,000 to this side, and these cancel. And then there is what they're asking for. So in here, they called it a equals, and then also they said use the variable t. So that means this is what they're calling a, so you don't need that. They put the equal sign, so you don't need that. And they did say use the letter t. So that means I need to use 20t plus 2,000. And then that would be the answer. And then there's just one more that I wanted to do, and that is way over here at number 32. So for this function, what's the degree? So this means what's the highest exponent? Well, this is to the 4th, and this is to the 5th. So if you multiplied all of this out, which I'm not recommending you do, so if you just multiplied this part out, this is 2 terms raised to the 4th. So 2 terms raised to the 4th is 16 terms. And then this would be 2 terms raised to the 5th. That'd be 32 terms. And then it would be 16 times 32, so that's going to be like 1,000 terms. So definitely do not multiply it out. But basically, if you just get an estimate for what the exponent would be, well, basically, this is, at least for now, this isn't really important. We're only talking about the exponent. So the degree is talking about the exponent. And because this one has to the 4th and this one has to the 5th, when you multiply, you actually add the exponents. So 4 plus 5, the degree would be 9. Find all of the x-intercepts. So for the x-intercepts, you set it equal to 0. And they were nice enough to factor it for us. So that means all I need to do is set this one equal to 0. And then separately set this one equal to 0. So for this one, just add 2 to both sides, and we get the answer, x equals 2. For this one, I need 2 steps. Subtract 3 from both sides, it's going to say 4x equals negative 3. And then to finish that one, just divide by 4 and divide by 4, and x equals negative 3/4. So that's the x-intercepts. And then finally for the y-intercept, that just means plug in x equals 0 and see what you get for the answer. So if you go back to this function, and we're doing part C, and you plug in 0, that's going to be 4 times 0 plus 3 to the 4th, and then 0 minus 2 to the 5th. Well, that right there is 0, so that means we really just have 3 to the 4th, and then this would just be negative 2 raised to the 5th. And I do need to put parentheses negative 2 raised to the 5th. And perhaps you can do that just in your head, but I can't. I'm going to use calculator. So 3 raised to the 4th, and then times, wait, that's not times, times, parenthesis, negative 2 raised to the 5th. And then that is a negative 2592.